Hello folks, this is part 3 of answering your questions, and I'm calling this one Telling the Story. Andrew Bowen wrote, Steve Earle wrote a fantastic tribute to Guy Clark called Goodbye Michelangelo. The song literally gave me goosebumps and got me wondering how it is possible to write new original songs using just a few chords. Well, hi Andrew. Firstly, whilst I've written a fair few songs in my time, I wouldn't pretend to be that clever at it, skilled or prolific. However, I am a great fan of those who can craft a song, and I love to hear a song that's been well put together. There are many forms and methods of songwriting, and lots of books have been written about it, different ways of phrasing, and rather like the traditions in poetry. My first and major point would be to write a great story. It doesn't have to have a beginning, middle and end, but it does have to be a story that people can become involved with, like reading a book or watching a movie or something like that. It's not that long. You need to be able to make that major point, to write that story, and to be able to tell that story so that you catch and hold an audience's attention. I'd like to mention some who, to me, demonstrate that skill. First of all, John Prine has a talent for telling a complete story in 3 verses and a chorus. Guy Clark, known as the Craftsman, for good reason. He had a number of devices, including his list songs, according to his longtime partner, Verlon Thompson. He would never tell you the whole story, but enough to get you involved in it. And of course, extremely prolific. Steve Earle learnt at Guy Clark's and Town Van Zant's feet, really, but he was a quick study, and he has a similar feel to Guy's, and his tribute to Guy reminds me of Guy's tribute to Townes Van Zandt, which was called Fort Worth Blues. Another singer-songwriter that I would like to mention is David Olney. Extremely intelligent and intellectual lyrics do take some investigation. I was reminded of that just the other night when someone came to my club just earlier this week and described a song that they thought I'd written, which is called Women Across the River, which was written by David Olney. Fascinating stuff, but requires some contribution, some involvement of the listener, of course. I started playing guitar because I wanted to sing and write songs. I'm not a great guitarist, I'm a very mediocre guitarist, as my other videos will witness, but I feel strongly that good songwriting or listening music is about the storytelling more than the backing. Someone recently very kindly told me on YouTube that my song about my father, called Here and Gone, was my tour de force. It has only 3 chords, 1, 4 and 5, and was heavily influenced by Guy Clark's song The Randall Knife, which was about the loss of his father. In that song, Here and Gone, I used 4 sets of internal rhyming couplets with a revolving bridge. Not that complicated, really. The story is about the relationship with my father, how his dementia brought us together, and how he haunts me in the nicest possible way. It could have been a book, but to say it all in a short song is the challenge. I feel that the song should have been a good storyline with the chords secondary. But there should be a melody running through it, but not too intrusive. The secret is to tell the story so the audience gets involved. I make a lot of eye contact when I perform. I have my words because I can't remember anything. I have them on a music stand rather low so it doesn't come between me and the audience, and I choose a number of faces in the audience who I sing to, not long enough for it to become creepy, but just, and then the people all around there feel that I'm singing to them, and I do appreciate it. I do interpret a song as a story. What else can I say on that? Oh yes, let's move on now to Angie Veri. One of my most faithful watchers. Thank you very much, Angie. She said, this may sound like a dumb question, but how does one know which instrument should be used while playing certain songs? For instance, I've listened to some songs and often thought, a mandolin would sound great in that mix. Or sometimes I thought, well, that harmonica sounds really good in the mix. Rodney Crowell's CD, The Travelling Kind, with Emmylou Harris, has amazing instruments, and mandolin particularly stands out really beautifully. I've noticed that some songs sound better or worse if they had a different instrument. Right, Angie, very interesting question. Thank you very much. First of all, there are no dumb questions if you don't know the answer. Thank you for reminding me about the Travelling Kind album, which I had, but forgotten I'd had and hadn't listened to it for ages. That particular song, The Travelling Kind, is a great song by Rodney Crowell, sung in close harmony with Emmylou Harris, who's so gifted as a harmony singer as well as a solo singer. And it was interesting that there is the album version of that song, The Travelling Kind, and two different versions of them singing it live on YouTube. One with just the two of them surrounded by flowers, and one of them with an unnamed mandolin player. And it's that latter one that I think is the best. I don't know who that mandolin player is, but he certainly added to it with subtlety. So back to your question. This is about orchestrating a studio-made piece for an album, but it should always be about serving the story. In the 60s and 70s, there were many singer-songwriters, and the first one that comes to mind is Tom Rush, who they got a recording contract, they were sent into a studio, and the people in the studio were still used to the big band and the crooner type era, and they wanted to add strings and things like that, and things were overproduced, too much noise, subjugating the story. Later production costs reduced that, and a number of studio musicians and country Americana, which wasn't the highest selling stuff perhaps, so on a limited budget, the singer-songwriter material got less overproduced, and the emphasis could return to selling the song, bringing up the vocals, maybe adding harmonies, patching in and patching out a mandolin. You might need a secondary instrument just to come in on one part and not be heard on the rest of it. That's very challenging when you're performing live, like I do with Mando, Bob and Ian, and I think, well, it doesn't need mandolin on anything but that break, but Bob doesn't want to stand there doing nothing, doing his knitting, so we have to balance those arrangements. Singer-songwriters normally travel solo or with just one or two sidemen, maybe a bass player or a second guitarist, or doubling on mandolin, dobro, harmonica, whatever. But skillful and minimal orchestration frees the storyteller to do just that. In 2003, 2004, I was whining to my best friend that I wanted to make a second album, but I wanted it with guitar and bass and mandolin and slide and dobro, but I couldn't get all the musicians I wanted together to do that. And he gave me an old-fashioned look and he said, and which of those instruments can't you play? And I said, well, I can't play all of them, but that's not the point. He said, yes, it is. Overdub whatever you want, whenever you want. So I bought myself a digital audio workstation. I think it was a Roland. And I made a ghost recording, just the guitar, which wasn't going to be on the final, and then I copied it with the guitar again, and then I put the vocals on, and I left gaps for a solo and things like that, and then I slowly built it up, and I made a fairly good fist of it. And but of course, lots of those instruments weren't on the whole thing. I would just have the mandolin solo just coming in for one chord progression or something like that, or just do a little twiddly bit at the end of one line, but not too busy. This year I'm planning to do more solo gigs. I love working with my good friends Ian and Bob, but sometimes to make those arrangements it limits my ability to communicate the story songs, and I do have a solo repertoire, and because I've lost my voice and had all these changes and lost my saliva glands and all that sort of thing, it's going to be a real challenge. I was due to do my first one on the coming Monday, but I had to cancel it because of this. So I've got, starting I think now I've got gigs with the band, but I think May, June and July and maybe August I've got some solo gigs, which will be a real challenge, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I'll be singing songs that that really tell stories. So that's what I wanted to say. That's enough about me. The real point about this is telling the story of the song, making sure that you portray it, perform it in a way that you can captivate your audience with it. I hope that helps. Thanks for watching.